Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest today, well, first of all, everyone should recognize our guest. We have Asha back on the podcast, coming to us from Houston again. I mean, it's been over a year since we last had her on, and she still works out. I mean, that's pretty obvious just by taking one look at her, everyone. I mean, I've had some guests where you're like, are they still doing it? But then you're one of those where you're just like, no, okay, like, come on now. Like, you can't really. That's the one thing that I think is so funny about being a bodybuilder is like, you get to a certain buffness where like people can't, there's no misconceptions about what you do.
Undeniable.
Really. It's undeniable. Yeah. Like you get to a certain point where like you can wear any type of clothes to, like, you could even wear what I'm wearing right now, like flannel, and it still shows too much. So that's why it's hard to hide after a while. But yeah, she's on here to give us an update on what she's been up to, and yeah, just talk about her journey. And thank you so much for coming back on.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
Well, I ask this every single time just because, it's a great icebreaker, and how many people just say, oh, that's a boring icebreaker, but what's the weather like today in Houston?
It's overcast today, which is a nice treat because it's been really, really hot this summer. We're finally getting some rain, which is also nice because it kind of cools things off. So it's hot and humid, basically.
How do you deal with that? Because like I am in Minnesota and it's reached 100 twice this summer, and those were the days where I just locked myself in the house. I didn't even go outside. I go on walks at night, and on those nights I had to wait until about 10 o'clock to go on my walk because that's the only time it was cool enough. How do you cope with that? Because that to me just sounds like a disaster.
Well, we had a stretch from, I would say, early June to recently, which is like late July, where it was over 100 almost every day. And you just deal with it. I grew up in Florida, so I'm used to the hot heat and humidity. So, once I get kind of acclimated when the seasons change, it's fine. You go out and you expect to sweat, change a couple times, get in the pool. That's about it.
I've been to Florida only once, and that was for a spring trip for baseball, and I cannot forget how you would wake up in the morning and it would look like it's perfect outside, and then the humidity would just hit you as soon as you walked outside, and then you're like, oh, it feels like it's 150 outside, but it's only about 85 degrees. So it's, yeah.
And you feel like you're underwater. Yeah.
Yep, there's that. So I mean, that's the only, as much as people talk crap about the Midwest and the weather, I will say it's nice to have seasons, and it's nice to see everything change, and the leaves are already starting to get a little bit browner now, and they're starting to get ready to fall in about September and October. Then again, who has to rake them for the entire neighborhood, basically? You're looking at them. So I don't really enjoy that part. But before I get into my, autumn work schedules that involve my part-time job as, raking people's lawns for, $10 an hour or something like that, why don't you give us an update on, what you've been up to since we last had you on? I mean, it's been over a year, and yeah.
So, I don't know what we talked about last time, but a year ago, I was getting ready for, I believe, the Rising Phoenix show. And I got an invitation for that show again this year. So we're getting ready for another Rising Phoenix show. But before that, I'm going to make a stop in Savannah and do the Savannah Pro. That's coming up in about 2.5 weeks, I think, on September 10th. So I'm pretty close to that show. Then I'll have maybe a day or so off and right back into prep for the Rising Phoenix.
I was gonna say, if you're looking the way you look right now and you're not getting ready for a show, I was like, what, like, what's going on here? Like, if you tell me that, like, oh, I'm just starting to get I'm like, what is happening here? So I was gonna say, yeah, it's like she has to be, preparing for something. But yeah, and I mean, since we last talked, I always love to ask this for people that I have on for the second time. What is one body part that you think that you've improved on the most since we had you on a year ago?
Definitely my biceps have gotten a little bit bigger. Legs all around have gotten a little bit more size on them. Hamstrings are a little bit more defined. So those are always positives for me as a taller competitor. It's a lot harder for me to show larger muscle versus shorter competitors. So it's a challenge to kind of grow and look like I've grown, especially when I'm standing next to someone who's half a foot shorter than me.
Well, you mentioned you got to give us a front double buy now because you mentioned biceps. Good God, everyone. Jeez. Yep. We can see. Yeah, they put on some. See, that's why I also wore this too, because it's like I need to cover up when I'm talking to some of these guests, where it's like just so I don't feel as bad as I do. It's like, just hide a little bit of it. But yeah. So how tall are you?
5'8".
5'8". Okay, yeah, I'm 6'3", and I went to my first ever bodybuilding show like 3 weeks ago. It was the Twin Cities Open, and yeah, I was the tallest guy. It was funny because like before they opened the door, they had like lines of people. I could see over every single person that was in line to get to the
Yeah.
show. So it was hilarious. I like met some guests that I had on that was from the Minneapolis area, and some of them were like 5'2", and it's just like, yeah, it was. So yeah, being 5'8", yeah, like you said, you are a half foot taller than a lot of people that are definitely on that stage. But I mean, just with everything that goes along with this sport too, the mentality we talked about in the last podcast that we have on, because it's just such a mental side of the sport. But one thing that also really isn't talked about as well is just how important it is to have a great coach and have good coaching. I've never really talked about coaching that much on the podcast because I've never had a coach myself, but I've talked to a few people that were coaches. What, in your opinion, makes a good coach? Because what works good for someone as a coach might not work as good for someone else.
Um, I think there's several aspects to that. Obviously, the coach's overall knowledge of the sport or the division that they're coaching. Um, Also, the relationship between the athlete and the coach really matters too. So, if you're an athlete that doesn't have a good relationship with your coach, just nothing's going to go right, whether the coach is very knowledgeable or not. But I think some basic qualities of a good coach is, like I said, knowledge of the sport, knowledge of pretty much like the human anatomy, biology. You've got to know some of that because you're basically directing someone to change their physique and sometimes go against natural biology. Um, Being a little bit understanding and compassionate with your athlete, I think, is good. Really good communication, being open to receiving communication as well as giving communication. Um, and a lot of that kind of falls into the athlete coach relationship. I don't see myself as a very needy athlete. I know some athletes need a little bit more.
I know some that if I were to coach them, they'd be messaging me every 3 hours, basically.
They may need a little bit more hand holding, but I tend to go almost too far the other way, where I'm like, I'm fine. I check in with my coach weekly, or right now it's biweekly, and he really doesn't hear from me otherwise.
Bi-weekly. I've had some guests where it's like as they get close to, they're like doing it like daily and stuff. So was your coach ever messaging you being like, "Are you still alive?" or something like that?
He has wondered if I'm late with an update, but as you get closer to a show, sometimes the periods between your updates starts to increase because previously it was just weekly. But now he's moved it up to bi-weekly, and I'm sure he'll want to see me more than that as we get closer.
Well, before we get into anything else, I see all the medals behind you and everything. What is the belt for? The gold belt?
That is, it's something my husband got
Oh,
for
okay.
me. It's like a title belt.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was gonna say if you're like doing wrestling on the side,
Oh, yeah.
that is awesome. Yeah, that is great. I mean, that is a lot of that is a lot of So wait, I'll see the Florida. So did you go to the University of Florida?
Yes, I am a Florida Gator.
So I take it that there probably wasn't that much studying at the University of Florida.
I made it. I got
I
my
know I know
degree.
a lot of FSU people, so that's where that comes from for me. Where that's like you go to that school, it's like breathe on this
Yeah.
door and we'll let you in basically. So
After my first 2 years, well, it's a tough school to get into for one, but after my first 2 years, I kind of quickly realized that I need to, you know, take it seriously on the studying and less of the going out and partying. So
whereas I was the exact opposite, where my first 2 years I hit the books hard and everything like that, and then when I finally realized that like I'm probably not going to get a job in what my major is, so might as well just get the degree and just I'm not gonna lie. Some of my last semesters, I only went to the class when there was the tests, and I just I showed up every once. So I did that everyone. So yeah, I did the exact opposite. But I went down. I visited a friend went to UCF, and I went to go visit that campus, and that was a lot of fun myself. It's different partying in the winter up here when it's -20 than when it's perfect weather down there. I just will add that little
I'm sure it is.
asterisk to that. But I mean, one thing that I love to talk about all the guests that I've had on before is that this is last year when I had you on, I think was such a watershed year of the sport because like there were so many deaths that happened. A lot of the stuff that goes behind the scenes really came front stage in the sport when a lot of people that maybe were a little bit familiar with the sport but just didn't understand the extremes that a lot of people take. It really came up and center for everyone, and a lot of people just realized, how hardcore the sport can be. What was that like seeing that whole thing be revealed to the public as a competitor, because just as someone who just talks to a lot of competitors and is invested in the sport that way, it was just shocking for me just to see how, I mean, I already knew a lot of that stuff, but just to see all of it come main center stage.
Um, it wasn't it's always surprising when someone dies in bodybuilding because we kind of we know the risks we take, but it's not real until, somebody or somebody you've competed against, or somebody just saw on social media, passes away. So having that come out, and people kind of take it seriously, and it's kind of blown over where nobody talks about it again now. But um, you know, it's I don't know, it's interesting because, like I said, as bodybuilders, we kind of know our risks, and people on the outside may not understand how we feel about it. To them, it may be more scary, more serious. And honestly, if you took a poll and you took the statistics of the number of bodybuilders that die during prep, it's probably pretty low. So, I mean, the sport is not perfect. It's an extreme sport. So, just like with any other extreme sport, you're going to have accidents and unfortunate events.
I mean, I compare the risk probably to the similar risk of me getting in my car tonight and driving to work and, getting
Mhm.
into a car crash for that. I mean, so there's always risk with everything, but I just, it was just, I compare it now to like it's sort of like whenever there's tragedies here in the US where people talk about something for like a week and then it just no one ever talks about it again until the next thing happens. It was like that with all the deaths, but the thing is that they were happening so frequently. There was like a dozen or so that I remember hearing and I was like,
Yeah.
what is going on? So yeah, that was it wasn't eye opening for me because like I said, I knew about all that stuff, but it was just where a lot of people in general public were just like, "Oh, this stuff happens in the sport," and then I would have to respond to them, "Yeah, and wait until I tell you that water is wet," basically, and then I would just respond to them like with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was just it was a huge thing for me. But as you put on, more sizes, we've seen. Have you changed up your nutrition at all, or is it still the same? You've just stuck with it. What is your nutrition like?
Well, more food, basically. You've got to feed the muscle. So portion sizes, especially in the off season, were ridiculous. It was virtually impossible for me to keep up with my diet. Now it's a lot easier since I'm cutting down, but generally, I would say with most competitors, it's, lean meats, some carbs, vegetables, water. That's the basics.
So, how do you stuff down that last bit of food? Because most people don't understand, like, with the amount of food that you have to eat to really put on some size, like, you are force feeding yourself. And I can try to eat as much as I want, but there always gets to be that last bit of it where it's just like that last chicken breast or that last thing where you just look at it and you just get a little gaggy. How do you sort of force yourself to eat that? Because that is a skill that not many people have.
Well, that was really only an issue in the off season. Um, you keep reminding yourself you got to eat to grow and you got to feed the muscle. I probably didn't get 100% of what I should have gotten, or what my coach wanted me to eat, I should say. But I would try my hardest to get in, all of my meals throughout the day. And it's part of the discipline of the sport. It's like, getting up at 4 o'clock and doing cardio. Nobody wants to do that, but you still do it. So, you want to eat all your food so you can grow, and you envision yourself, winning a show or being bigger than somebody else on stage. So you just got to go and tap into those, mental things to kind of get yourself to do what you need to do.
Yeah, so I got up at 11 today because I work from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. So I got home and I was in bed by 3 a.m. So yeah, I am going to bed about an hour before most of these guests that I have on get up and do the well, actually, because of the time difference, it would be 4 o'clock. But no, because you're in Houston. That's right. I was gonna say if you were in
Yeah.
Florida, then it would be. But yeah, so there is that, everyone. So that's a little shining light on that. So that is, yeah, that is just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, that whole mindset that people have, that's just I've always said Joey Chestnut, if he ever tried to become a bodybuilder, good God, look out for that guy because if he's able to eat all that, he'd probably put on size, quicker than everyone else. But just, I mean, with all the nutrition and everything else that goes along with it, a lot of the unsung stuff, as well. But I mean, with competitions, I've always found it funny that when I went to my first competition, I was just first of all shocked by the smell of tan that I could smell it from the back row when I got in there, and I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I'm at a bodybuilding show. But on top of that, what is your favorite thing about show day, and what is your least favorite thing about show day?
Um, One of my favorite things about being at a show is probably getting to be back in the presence of the competitors. In women's bodybuilding, we're a very small group and all pretty friendly. So it's like getting together and seeing your friends again. We're competitive on stage, but behind this backstage, check-ins, things like that, we're all really friendly. So it's always fun to see them and be in that environment again. Um, so that's something I really, really enjoy about being at the shows, or show day, I should say.
What's one thing that you don't like?
Um, Gosh, probably posing. It's hard.
That's like me saying I didn't like being a baseball pitcher because I hated throwing the ball. No, I know.
That's the
It's
last thing
horrible.
you want to do at that in that state that you're in is work hard.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Well, and I didn't realize how much of a time commitment just that day is, where people are getting up like super early just to get their makeup done and everything else done, and then the shows aren't done until you hear prejudging, and then they give you a couple hours off, and then next thing you know, it's like 8 o'clock at night, and you're finally done, and you've been up for like 18 hours basically. So
it can be an exhausting day. Yeah.
and I didn't know also ahead of time though too that most of the judging is done in prejudging, so you kind of know what place you're gonna get. So I would just troll the crap out of these judges. I would have like 10 Big Macs in between my prejudging and my final. Just come out there with the biggest bloated stomach ever, and just be like, if I knew I was gonna win first place, and just be like, thank you guys, I really appreciate. I love to be the pinnacle of men's health and fitness, basically, with my beer gut coming out and stuff. So yeah, but that was a huge shocking thing for me as well. But you brought up posing. I mean, yeah, it is the hardest thing. Have you worked on your anything new with your posing routine? Because I know people like to change little things up year by year. How do you change your posing routine? Like, how do you determine what is enough to change? Because obviously you're going to do the mandatory poses, but a lot of people just find different ways to change it up. And I always find that fascinating.
Yeah. Well, this year I'm working with a new posing coach, Christina Mendoza, who's also a Wings of Strength ambassador and female bodybuilder. And I've really enjoyed working with her. She's got, I guess, the woman's touch to posing. Previously, I was working with Kenny, who's also great, but um, with Christina, she just adds a few things that are a little bit more feminine. You get that feminine touch, which I really, really like, because women's bodybuilding, we're up there, we're huge, we're blocky, we're stiff, so we really have to try hard to make it look very feminine, flow between poses, the transitions and things like that. Um, Change that up a little bit. So I've worked on that with her. Just working on how to accentuate, the bigger biceps, the bigger quads that I have, making sure my hamstrings pop properly, um, are just some of the things that we've worked on.
Do you find it hard sometimes to find that balance between being super muscular and having that femininity? Because for a lot of people in the general public, they don't equate, a lot of muscles with femininity. Do you find that hard at times to sort of find a healthy balance between the two?
I don't, but I think you have to, or I should say, I kind of make it a point to over exaggerate it sometimes to make sure that people get that point, because
So you're walking up to people and you're like, "Hi guys, how's it going?" Stuff like that.
I mean, I'm just walking through the store or something like that, and I'm, kind of like this. It's not super girly. Sometimes I try to, emphasize that, but I mean, if I feel like it, I do it. If not, you get what you get.
If they had female bodybuilders do the like a Victoria's Secret model walk, I think that would be the funniest thing ever. They should have you do something like that. That would just be funny though. I think that would definitely be a sight to see. But when we're talking about shows, I mean, the Arnold announced again, it's not having bodybuilding and it's not having physique, and then just now it's not even having figure, for God's sakes. I don't know, what's going to happen. What's your reaction to me like that? Because I mean, it is the Arnold. It is named after the guy that has done more for bodybuilding than I think anyone else, male or female. Just when you think about bodybuilding, you think about Arnold Schwarzenegger. So what has that been like to hear that I mean, they're getting rid of all these other female divisions as well?
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I mean, I when they took out women's bodybuilding, I was like, all right, we're kind of like the black sheep anyway. When they took out physique, that was surprising. When I found out they took out figure and 212, I was really, really shocked. I mean, I don't know the direction that they want to go with this show because if I'm not wrong, I think it started out as a bodybuilding show, and then they've added, strongman, and they've got some crazy stuff going on there. But it's really disappointing that it's kind of fading away from what it originally was. And the other category, when female categories that they've kept are not, the originals, the OGs. So
Yeah, and I mean, it's yeah. I honestly don't know how to describe it myself because it just seems like, yeah, they just want to just have the male side of it too, and then they just want to have girls in bikinis basically just walking up that look like, they've nothing against bikini compares. I have a lot of them on, and they put in a lot of work as well. But it's like you do not put in that hard, a lot of other things differentiate a bikini girl from a physique or bodybuilder, or even a figure girl. So, yeah, there's that. But I mean, the divisions are always constantly changing sort of what they're looking for. I mean, I've always found it so fascinating that if you were to look at what bodybuilders looked like 5 years ago, it's physique competitors. And if you looked at what physique competitors looked like 5 years ago, it's figure competitors, basically. It is ridiculous how it's evolving. What has that been like, sort of seeing this sport evolve into a harder and bigger look as years have gone by, where it's like, I don't even know if 10 years from now, I mean, the bikini competitors might look like physique competitors. Who knows?
yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's just a natural progression of the type of people that compete, in the higher level and the professional level. We always want to, lift more, push harder, go to the next extreme. And the result of doing that is getting usually bigger, more shredded, better conditioning. So, unless the judges step in and really put a stop to that, it's going to just continue to keep going. And with female bodybuilding, I think it got like that. And that's why they took it out because they didn't like the look. Um, and the way that female bodybuilding is now, I think it's in a good place. But just like in the past, it has the potential to keep going that way if it's not kept in check. And that's with any division. I mean, I was listening to a podcast about the women's physique division and reading the guidelines by the IFBB. It's not what they judge. So
Well, the only reason I don't like where women's bodybuilding is at right now, because you have someone like Andrea Shaw, who I love and I've had on. She's going to win like the next 10 years, basically, if she just stays in the sport. So it's just like, what do you like? We got to get more pair. We got to get something who looks a little bit, because then you have like you have, shoot, what's her name? Iris Kyle, who then wins like 10 years or something like that. And then you have Linda Murray. It's like yeah.
mhm.
But then Andrea Shaw, love her. Andrea, if you listen to this, it's great having you on. I had to adjust the camera just to get her to fit in the damn screen because she's so big. So I was just like, okay, that's interesting, but there, there's that. So, but yeah, but I do think that, yeah, it is getting a little bit healthier than what it was when I first started talking to health and fitness guests like 4 years ago. And you'd have some of those guests on where you're just like, okay, maybe we need to, maybe we need to just tone things down just a little bit, because it's like, yeah, so that's a whole different conversation though. But I mean, it is, yeah, I do, like I said before, I do currently like where it's at, but I gotta ask, and I'm just gonna edit this out. What do you do for shoulders and traps? Because I'm just talking to you right now, and it's like there's that stereotypical bodybuilder where it's like, how do they
I
even
don't think
breathe? Yeah,
so.
well, yeah, so she's relaxed now, but like when she's down here, when she's like this and stuff like that, it's like, is she even breathing and stuff like that? Like your traps are like that. What do you do for that? Because like shoulders are the number one body part for females. When I ask like, what's one body part that you struggle with, that I hear of all the time. So what do you do? Because I will get killed in the comments down below if I don't ask you what you train for at least shoulders.
It's I have to give credit to genetics. I do not train my traps a lot. I do add them.
Traps are the calves of upper body, where like you don't have to really train. It's the most genetic thing. Yeah.
I think a lot of it came from running. When I used to run a lot, I would always run like with my shoulders up. Um, so that kind of helped with that trap development. Delts, that's another thing. I mean, I don't have a crazy delt workout. Honestly think my delts are kind of on the smaller side. Um, but I think the whole, the upper body, I think is genetically, it's a genetic gift. So
I hate these people. I really hate them. I mean, the delts are on the smaller side. I got to remind everyone that they are not the 99.999% of the population. So you got to remember that when you're talking to these people. Otherwise, you will get upset with them and just be like, wait, you think no? But I'm for a second, if you told me that you got those traps just from running, I was like, I might actually force myself to run now then. And I might just have to put my shoulders up really high when I'm doing it. So everyone who knows, that might be the secret here that no one has thought of. Try it for a couple of weeks, see if you see any development. If it does, get back to me, and I will do that for the rest of my life then, because that is, that is awesome. But I mean, we've heard a little bit from you just from how you've talked about yourself. Body dysmorphia. I love to bring it up when I'm talking about bodybuilders, because for me, it is bad, but it's also the funniest thing for me talking to some of these guests where like they are the most in shape people on the planet, and they talk about like how I'm still lacking in this area, I'm still not big enough, and you just want to just throw them in front of a mirror and just say, look at yourself. You are fine. You are better than anyone. You are better than, so many people. But how do you accept the fact that, I mean, like, there should be like if you sign, there should be like a contract that you sign when you decide I'm going to be a bodybuilder, and at the very bottom of it, it should just be like, P.S. You are never going to be good enough. You are forever going to be small. Just accept that and prepare for it. But how do you deal with that fact that, like, no matter how big you get, there's still always going to be a part of you that's like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, I think it's relative. I mean, if I go through the grocery store, I'm like, yeah, I'm in shape. My weight is good, my muscle development is really good. But if you compare me to the people I stand on stage with, I'm going to find something that, the person that placed above me, if there's anybody, has better than me. There's always some body parts that people are, like traps genetically gifted in, and you're going to see that their development in that area is better. So with the body dysmorphia, I think it's more of a relativity type conversation versus just being dissatisfied with yourself. And as competitors, we want to win. We always want to do well. So with anything that people are competitive in, you're always going to find something to work on or to improve on. So I don't know that a lot of us are genuinely disappointed or think that we really look or like crap. But there's stuff that we think that we could improve on. So
I have been this close to blocking about 5 of my guests that I've had on, because I've gotten messages at like 1 a.m. from them of photos of them saying, do I look ready for this show? And I'm just like, so yeah. But again, everyone, you got to look at it through lenses. Like, yeah, when they do step on stage, when you're at an event where everyone else looks just as good, or maybe a little bit less or a little bit better than you, it depends, yeah, you do have to look at it through that lens too, where it's just like, yeah, if I was being a pitcher against a bunch of, like guys that have never played baseball before, yeah, it's I convert that to sort of like the same, similar thing. But I asked you this question last time, and it's, obviously still my favorite question to ask, but you're not the average looking woman. Like you said, when you walk in the grocery store, it's just different, especially if you're dressed the way you are right now. I mean, it's like being a mini celebrity. Has it has it gotten easier for you now to sort of just accept that like, I am a genetic marvel, really, where it's like, I am going to get stares and I'm going to get attention no matter what I wear? Because like I said, you could be wearing this where you're all covered up, but it's like, you're at that hugeness now where it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think I've gotten used to it. There's times where sometimes I don't want to be looked at or stared at. But that doesn't happen very often. I just kind of just keep my head focused on, what I'm doing. And the other thing is I try to be a good ambassador to the sport, and not like that mean muscle lady that's walking through the grocery store that's scowling at
We
everybody.
ran out of celery, and just like break stuff and flip stuff.
I feel like that a lot of the time. People, I think it's important for people to understand us, and we should be approachable. If somebody wants to compliment, me scowling at them is not really going to encourage them to come up and see something nice. So I catch myself doing that sometimes and thinking, hey, I try to play in my mind that, maybe they're just staring because they are impressed or, whatever. So
Maybe they're a serial killer too. You never know.
it's possible, definitely possible.
That
Yeah.
Well, that brings me up. There was a guy in college who, like, I have met so many positive, weightlifters throughout my life, but there was this one guy where if you were to throw the stereotypical gym bro, he would fit it. Like, he didn't even talk. He just grunted. That was his language. He was just like, and he was just a huge guy. And I just want to go up to him and say, like, you are doing so much damage for the stereotype of the gym. For every positive that I meet, like, there's been 100 positive guys and girls that I've met in the gym. You are the one guy where I look at that and I'm like, if anyone walks into the gym and sees this guy, they're never going to want to go into a gym ever again. So yeah, it is important to do that. But I also love, because like obviously you're going to get negatives, things.
Mhm.
It just happens with it. But I always love to point out, what is one positive interaction that you've had with someone that really stands out to you?
Um, Really, it's just anytime somebody compliments me. I mean, they say, "Oh, you look great," or they ask me about competing or anything like that. I really enjoy that, um, and it makes me feel good because I work really hard for what I do in prep and in competitions, and to have somebody that doesn't really know anything about bodybuilding or somebody that can just appreciate it, because there are a lot of people that are like, she looks like a man, or, you shouldn't have that much muscle, or you spend forever working out. There's so much of that to get, compliments and things like that. I think it's really special.
Please tell me that there's been at least one time where someone's asked if you work out and you say, no, I just got this from like sewing or something like that. Like I just got this big or something like that. I've never touched a weight a day in my life. That would be awesome.
I usually tell them it's like jazzercise or something like that.
I mean, I would attend that jazzercise class then if I came up to her and said you work out, she says jazzercise, I'd be like, okay, where is it? How much does it cost? I'm gonna be there tomorrow. I'll get there 10 hours early basically. But yeah, that's great. I mean, we talked about this before, but I mean, cardio. Has your cardio gotten less, or is it still just as much as it was last year? What's your cardio like?
I don't remember how much cardio I was doing last year. I was just talking to my husband about this morning, but this year, right now, I'm doing 60 minutes in the morning, 40 minutes before workout, and 28 minutes after workout. So that's probably more than an hour.
Why 28? Why exactly 28 minutes? Is it just because you have that time down perfectly where that's exactly how much you need?
That's what the coach says. So,
So 2 hours and 8 minutes total. Jesus.
yeah.
More power to you, I guess. Good God. I mean, I go for my walks at night and sometimes they're like 2 hours, but that's just to get my 10,000 steps in if I'm sitting around here, editing and working and on the nights that I don't work basically. But yeah, that is ridiculous. That is, again, the dedication of bodybuilders and everything like that. But I would say it would be funny if I was in the gym and I saw someone like you on the treadmill for an hour. I'd be like, wait, is that how she gets it? Like, is that how this whole thing comes to be? So that is, again, people do not understand the deal that you have to sign with the devil when it comes to cardio when you become a bodybuilder. They just think it's all working out and all maybe eating a little bit, and then you just like sit on the couch when you're not working out and just like grow magically. And it's just like, no, that is unfortunately, that is not the case. But what is one piece of advice that you'd give someone who just wants to get started, working out and getting in shape? Because I'm not gonna lie, COVID really, like, I went to my first wedding of like 2 weeks ago, and just seeing how COVID has affected so many people and made this country a lot more obese than it was before, and it was pretty bad even to begin with. Like, we need to turn things around, people. Like, I'm at the point right now where this is a joke, everyone, so don't take it seriously. Like, we need to bring back fat shaming and just make it in public, really, basically. That's like we need to do it like public fat shaming everyone. I think that's where we're getting close to that point. And I'm joking, everyone, but not really. I'm just, it's a little bit of a joke, but it's like we are almost at that point right now as a nation. But what advice do you have for someone who's looking just to go to the gym and just, try to better themselves, because God forbid that needs to be happening a lot more.
Um, I definitely agree with you that we've entered a bigger weight issue. I'm a registered dietitian, so I see people and for weight issues as well as other health issues. And more I see, I put on 20 pounds, I put on 30 pounds since the pandemic. So it's very, very common for people to have put on a whole bunch of weight. And I tell them it's easy as it's starting as going walking, you know. You don't have to go in the gym. Obviously, if you start, resistance training, good quality cardio, you're going to have better results. But some people are still afraid to go to the gym, believe it or not. So just getting out and going for a walk, moving more, adding more activity, trying to work on your diet, adding more fruits and vegetables to your diet is, I think, some of the easiest and minimal things that you can do to get started.
I mean, yeah, I put on 10 pounds during the pandemic and I lost the 10 pounds in a month and a half just going on walks, at night. That's really what I mean. I still do the weight training and stuff like that, but I did take a couple months off of the working out just because I had other stuff to focus on. And, so yeah, walking is the most simple thing you can do. And it's cheap, right? It's free. And, you just make sure to bring water with you. Everyone, learn from my mistakes too. Do not go on a walk without water, because by God, There's a story that I've told many times, and I don't want to tell it here because it's a long story, but I got lost hiking in Duluth one time and almost died, and we'll leave it at that, basically. But, so everyone, make sure you
Yeah.
bring water. One piece of advice that you can get from this entire podcast, make sure, you do that. And I asked you this question last time, too, but I love to ask it, too, because it's one of my final two wrap-up questions is, if someone were to walk up to you and say, we made a decision, you can change one thing about the health and fitness lifestyle or bodybuilding, just basically either or, you could do both, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Um, Bigger corporate sponsorships, meaning more money.
Yeah. I mean, short and sweet. And I have said that really since I really got informed about like how big the pay difference is and how little it is even for like the men to win and even for the women too. It's like you win the Olympia, what do you get, like a car and you get like a certain amount of money, but it's like there should be now again, don't make it like so much money that like people are like killing themselves basically just to like step on that stage, but like make it. I've always said that like if you're a pro in the sport, you should be given like a stipend or something like $30,000-$40,000, just a base, so that you don't have to like if push came to shove, you could just focus on bodybuilding. Because people don't understand how much of a time commitment this sport is, where it's like being a dietitian too. I mean, you have a job that's somewhat similar to like a health and fitness thing, but it's like the time commitment this sport alone takes. It's like if you were to be able to have a little bit more free time, it would save so much so much stress and so much basically
I
everything
would
with this
have to get
sport.
up at 4 in the morning.
Well, I know some psychopaths that would still do that, but luckily you're not one of those. I know some people that be like, I'd be getting up at 3 then because I have extra time to do more. It's I don't understand some of these people that I talk to, and I'm glad that I'm talking to them not in person, because I'd be like I'd be fearing for my safety and like looking at the nearest exits, just be like, okay, this is that. So, but yeah, that is, the pay thing and the judging thing too for me, where it's like every sport is gonna have human error. Believe me, being a baseball pitcher, there are times I told my catcher, move aside this next pitch. We're gonna drill this ump because this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But like judges, I mean, you can go to one show, they want one look. You go to the next show the next week, they want a different look. It's like just have a model. This is exactly what we're looking for, and just try your best to achieve it, because that's really what I would do, myself. But this is also a question that I just came up with about 20-30 podcasts ago. It shows how great of a host I was. I've had 500 guests on, and I just came up with this, but I think this to myself every single time I have a bodybuilder or just a health and fitness guest on, and it's just the human nature in myself. Why did they do this to themselves? Why did they put themselves through this? I hear all these prep brain stories, and I hear all these other, like I hear you doing like 2 hours of cardio a day now as you're getting ready for a show. And I'm just like, why did they put themselves through this? Why did they do? Obviously, I know why, but like just the human in me is just like, why did they do this? And I bet you even think that to yourself every once in a while. And if you deny it, I'll pretend that I don't think you're lying, basically. But like I bet you still hear that from friends and family, just being like, why do you do this to yourself? What is your why? How do you like to respond to that when they ask you like, why are you putting yourself through this?
Ooh, that's a good question. I I often think about why we do things, and I think a lot of it has to do with our types of personalities. When I'm outside of contest prep, I am constantly trying to structure myself like I'm in prep. It just brings a kind of peace to an organization to my life that I really like. Um, I like to push myself and challenge myself, and getting ready for a show is a guaranteed 3 to 4 months of pushing and challenging yourself. Um, and then you get that thing at the end, that kind of dopamine hit of being on stage, seeing the um, results of all of your work, and hopefully you're rewarded for it with a top placing. So that really just drives you again to go through all of it all over again. And usually people's good experiences is enough to kind of get them to kind of want more. It's like marathon runners. If you talk to a marathon runner, they're hating life on that second half of a marathon. As soon as they hit the finish line, they're ready to sign up for their next one.
We don't mention those psychopaths on the podcast. Those people that run for fun, I don't know what hurt them as a kid or what the hell happened to them, but like I just will give them a number to a therapist and just say, go see that. You don't have like I have a friend that runs marathons, and
Medals are from. They're a lot more expensive.
I forgot about that, everyone. I forgot that she was a mayor. My friend does a lot of marathons, and he's like good at them, and I just want to show up to one of them just with a sign that says, you didn't have to do this. Just at the end, like as he's wrapping up, and just yeah, that is again, like I cannot run. I mean, I can run obviously, but like I hate running more than life itself, like the walks I like to go through, but that is a special breed of person to be able to do that, for fun. But now I love to play devil's advocate here. If you had never discovered bodybuilding, never really got into the weight room seriously, where do you think you'd be at in life right now? What do you think you'd be doing?
Probably running more.
That's the one time on the podcast I'm going to say thank God for bodybuilding, basically. Then for in her case, then at least. So
Because I was really into running before I got into bodybuilding, so I was starting to get good at that. And even like multi-sport events, like triathlons, biathlons, things like that. I'd probably be doing that more often than I am lifting.
my favorite thing to look at on Instagram is when people post those transformation photos from like where they were to where they're at right now, especially when they started. Do you ever look at old photos of yourself and just think to yourself, like, how the heck did this happen? Like, how the heck did I make myself look like this? Especially like if you looked at when you were in your running days, is that just kind of a marvel to you? Like, how did I do this?
It's amazing. I've posted one of those, and I should probably do another one. Um, I think when I was really good at running, I was around 130 pounds. Currently, I'm sitting at 190, so probably just as lean, fat wise, but that much more muscle on my body.
So you basically put on half your body weight, basically, since you started becoming a body. Yeah. I've always thought it'd be funny, like if you ran into your old runner self, like through a time travel thing like that, like what they would say, be like, "What is going on here?" So but that's again, yeah, that transformation is. I love those picks more than anything else because it just shows, and this is also a sport that takes a lot of time to do. But before we wrap things up, too, you mentioned that you're a dietitian. What is the biggest problem that you run into with people when it comes to either their diet or just their food choices? Because I'm going to say this, people, that plays more of a factor than anything else. Your diet and your food choices.
Um, Portion size, I would say, and eating out are the biggest issues with people. Convenience foods are killing people, so to speak, literally and figuratively. You can't just pop through the drive-through every couple of weeks and expect to, or every few times a week, I should say, and expect to maintain your weight. Um, Exercise is a very, very close, I would say, second or third. The older people get, the less they exercise, and they don't realize that they actually need it more the older they get because, just hormonal changes, lifestyle changes. As you get older, your body's just less efficient at everything. So you have to really help yourself with diet and exercise if you want to maintain your weight, and stop putting on weight.
I remember in high school, we did like, it was in social studies class. We did like you wrote to like a company about something or an issue or whatever. And I watched Supersize Me. So I wrote to McDonald's and I basically told them, I was like, you're contributing to the obesity crisis. Like I ended it with like, you should be charged against crimes against humanity or something like that. Like I just doing it for a grade. They sent me back a thank you for your concerns. Here's a $5 gift card to a McDonald's thing or whatever like that. So I was like, oh, McDonald's, you people. So, so that's, and portion size is a huge thing. Like there was a burger place that I have around here where the burger is so big that like it gets off the bun and goes onto the plate. And then you look at like when I talk to some guests from Europe, like the funniest thing, I have friends that go to Europe, they lose like 20 pounds, not
Mhm.
even doing anything, just from eating because they eat less there. And then they come back and they gain it back in like a month. But it's like, it's insane how it is. And then like when my brother went there, it's like their beer is like low calorie, like their beer is nothing. So like they drink their beer like water, especially when you went to Germany, and that's all they do is they drink beer there. So it's like it's I definitely think we should probably take a look at that and be like, yeah, maybe less portion sizes as well. So yeah, that is one thing that I definitely agree with as well. And when we do have you on a year from now, where would you like to be at just in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved when we talk to you a year from today?
Ooh, definitely some top placings at the Rising Phoenix again. Hopefully another Olympia under my belt. Obviously, qualification for that is paramount for all of us. Bigger, more size. Um, I always like to feel more conditioned when I pose. Somehow that's one of the things that always kind of exhausts me. And my dream one day is to just go through poses and I'm like, that felt fine. Um, so yeah, that's probably a big one for me.
Every year we have her on, we're gonna have her do a front double bi, and I'll just show the photos as she progresses, like from the years that we've had her on, and we'll see the changes that she's made. But yeah, I mean, best of luck, and I wish you nothing but. So when is it? So it's in 2 weeks. You're doing the Savannah Pro.
It is like 2.5 weeks. It's September 10th.
Okay, because I'm so backlogged on these, this will be published probably like right after the Savannah Pro, so I'll have the result posted down below what she does, and hopefully she does great. And lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Um, Obviously my husband, he's like my assistant coach. He keeps me in line. My coach, Trey Hodge, my posing coach, Christina Mendoza, Wings of Strength, who sponsors me and a lot of other female athletes, and they do so much for women's bodybuilding these days.
So I was just about to wrap it up, but you mentioned Wings of Strength, and I have not talked about Wings of Strength really at all, even though I've had, like dozens of their ambassadors or athletes on. How exactly do they help you out? Like, do they like with sponsorships? Like, how does that, like the whole, that side of the thing work? Cause I've never talked to anyone about that.
Um, well, their whole platform is kind of based on promoting women's bodybuilding and, just the female competitor. Every year they have a ambassador program, and you can apply to become an ambassador. Those who become ambassadors, we get an annual stipend, I believe, because there's different tiers, but um, we get to get travel and accommodation to go to a show, to make an appearance. We also get compensation to help us compete too at a show. So it's financially, it's very helpful for us. And we do a lot to help promote them too. So it's kind of a mutual type of relationship, but they really, really work hard to support us and to help us do our best at competing.
That is honestly, there needs to be more than like that. I don't get why there isn't, more than just one. I know that there's other places that help out people, but yeah, that is ridiculous. I mean, like the funniest thing was that I was watching ESPN this weekend and they had dodgeball on, and then they had some other thing. It's like they used to have bodybuilding on ESPN. It's like, why not bring that back at least? And it's like, yeah, cornhole is so much more of a tougher sport than bodybuilding is, everyone. So that deserves to be on there. And it was, yeah, that is. Although I will say they had the strongman and women competitions, and one of my guests had on was a strong woman. And I got home, this was like 2 years ago, or this was like a year ago. I got home, I had a few beers with my older brother. I got home, and one of my guests was on the moment that I turned on ESPN2. This is like 1 o'clock in the morning because it was like in Dubai. And
Well,
I thought I was a little inebriated too much. Where I was like, wait, am I dreaming things or whatever like that? And I messaged her. I was like, wait, are you on ESPN? And then yeah. So that was great. But again,
that's pretty cool.
thank you so much for coming on. I really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. It's my pleasure.
Everyone, go and check out our Instagram page, Buyer Beware. You will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those damn Twinkies. She's one of those guests again, everyone, where I even gotta the whole time talking to her, I was thinking about like I really need to train my upper body more. I need to train my legs. It's one of those guests that just depresses me, but it's a good depression where it's like it motivates me. So keep doing what you're doing because you motivate people like me to actually like get off my butt every once in a while and put some effort into the gym. But again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure being on.
I appreciate that. Now this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.